Certainly, the most game-changing automobile in Corsa history was the GAZ-AA, which holds an honourable first place in our series of videos about the WWII era vehicles. Today, our initial narrative revolves around it, although numerous modifications and versions existed, so we'll definitely come across this car in other episodes too. But for now, let's focus on this one. This automobile doesn't trace its origins solely to the Soviet Union. Moreover, it has a direct connection to the Henry Ford. When in the 1920s, the well-known businessman decided the United States needed a new truck. Thus, in 1927, the Ford AA started roaming the roads of America. And soon after, the story of this truck continued on the other side of the world, where it would be mass-produced for decades. Under the agreement concluded between USSR and the Ford Company, Americans granted a license for the production of the Ford A and a truck version Ford AA, along with providing assistance in organising the manufacturing process and training personnel. At that time, that was a truly monumental event. The country acquired a mass-produced cargo vehicle through assembly line manufacturing. And already by 1932, the plant in Nizhny Novgorod was open, marking the start of the production of the Soviet GAZ-AA truck. These vehicles truly became a nation order, accompanying soldiers and public throughout the entire war. It was these trucks that delivered essential supplies along the road of life to the Nazi blockade in Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg. They served as the buses, ambulance, police cars, artillery or delivery trucks, and they were pretty much only vehicles on the roads evacuating the wounded from the front lines. The GAZ-AA body was present form of a classic cargo shape of its time with an open top. But the first thing that catches the eye is the wide fenders that seamlessly merge into the door sills. The unmistakable influence of American style is evident here. Originally, the GAZ had a 40 horsepower engine, which you could approach from any side of the car. These hood panels fold on top, giving you access to the entire engine. But the engine was positioned so low, so visually it seems that it's not even there. Later on, the GAZ-MM was released with the only difference of an extra 10 horsepower added to it. It's quite challenging to pinpoint the actual truth these days, but there has been a mix of opinions regarding the reliability and shortcomings of this engine. Some argue that if anything could bring it down, it was either the impacts of the explosion or questionable qualifications of those who operated it. Yet, reading the car's manual, especially when comparing it to the modern car, is truly shocking. According to the manual, the oil service intervals should be carried out every 700 kilometers, with an engine oil consumption of approximately 1 litre per 100 kilometers. The official catalogue listed up to 12 repair sizes of pistons and inserts. Of course, no one ever followed the intervals specified in the manual, usually preferring to swap the entire engine on a regular basis. Despite this, there was one area where this engine served well. It was its undemanding nature. During the war, there are known cases where, after the failure of babbitt bearings, they were quite successfully replaced with a piece of soldier's leather belt. With such an insert, the car could travel some distance until a more quality repair could be performed. GAZ was fueled with a low-octane gasoline, with a compression ratio of only 4.2, so the tank was often filled with the tractor Legroin or with a lamp kerosene. It was adaptable to a wide range of fuels and could operate on pretty much anything that burned. There was even a rumour suggesting that with a warmed-up engine, GAZ could run on unprocessed by high-quality crude oil. According to the specifications, GAZ can reach the speed of 70 km per hour, however in real conditions, maximum speed rarely exceeded 40 km per hour, and that was on a flat surface, not on the muddy and snowy terrains where it was most often utilised. One interesting aspect is the placement of the fuel tank. It's located where in conventional cars for us the instrument panel should be, right in front of the driver and the passengers, with a filler neck cap in front of the windshield. And the car doesn't have a fuel pump at all. The gasoline flows from it into the carburetor by gravity with a rising stream, the design of which prevents excess fuel entering the cylinders. The GAZ-AA is commonly referred to as 1.5 ton of its payload capacity. Interestingly, the entire chassis is constructed without a single bolt, solely relying on bolts and rivets. This allows it to remain quite flexible and bendable, and I guess it's this flexibility was the reason which prevented it from breaking when it was constantly used with double overload. It would bend and crack but not snap. The combination of instruments does not impress with its beauty as much as with the originality in design. The fuel level indicator is a simple float, where the fuel tank is essentially the instrument panel itself, and the speedometer is another masterpiece. It has a fixed needle but a rotating drum marked in kilometers per hour would indicate your current speed you're going at. And the foldable windshield is my personal favourite, definitely a stylish feature of the past. Well, that would be pretty much it for this tiny little cabin. Lastly, maybe it's good to mention that in order to fire up the car, you would hit the pedal rather than pressing the button or turning the key like we used to. But most of the time the starter didn't work, so you would end up having to step outside and give a crank starter a spin. During the wartime, the equipment of 1.5 tonne noticeably simplified. The wartime modification lacked the front brakes, the fenders were made out of thin roofing iron, easily distinguishable from a sleek pre-war ones, and only one headlight was kept on the left side. Due to the shortage of metal, a simplified cabin with the canvas tops and curtains instead of the doors was used. As an our model, the doors are made out of wood panels, and you would be lucky to have at least one windshield wiper. It is this simplified version that most people remember. These trucks played a crucial role in the development of the military vehicles. Their chassis served as the base for the specialized modifications, including the light armored cars, electric stations, medical field laboratories, aviation launch vehicles, long-range detection systems, and even that famous rocket launcher Katyusha was developed based on the GAZ-AA platform. Driving these trucks off-road wasn't exactly the joyride, especially considering their suspension setup, a dependent system with a single transverse semi-elliptic springs in the front and 2 longitudinal cantilever springs in the rear. This configuration presented significant challenges, especially in off-road conditions, where a broken suspension mount could bring the entire journey to a complete halt, and that would happen pretty often. Being a driver of one of these 1.5 tonne trucks meant constant work involving daily or even hourly repairs. During the winter, you would have to pour hot water into the radiator to kickstart the engine, and at the end of the day draining it to prevent freezing. Given the multitude of problems these cars faced, being a driver was a tough gig. So let's pay tribute to those who took on this challenging role, and to better understand so, it is best if we take a particular location and period of time in which GAZ-AA performed one of the most extreme and life-saving missions. We are going to look at the harsh winters of 1941 and 1942 at the Lake Ladoga near Leningrad. This period, a tragic yet heroic chapter in World War II, saw the city cut off by German forces for 2 years and 4 months. Hitler's directive on the blockade aimed to seal off and destroy Leningrad, but the resilience of its people, with the aid of vehicles like GAZ-AA, played a crucial role in overcoming this devastating siege. During the city's siege, Lake Ladoga, also known as the Road of Life, served as the only lifeline connecting Leningrad to the outside world. However, this route was open to the enemy artillery targeting the waterway. Despite continuous operation, transportation across the lake couldn't meet the cargo demands. Early in the siege, widespread hunger took hold as the city faced complete lack of food. In just 3 months, over 250,000 people died, mostly due to starvation. Daily food ratios were cut down to 250 grams of bread for the engineers and essential workers, and only 125 grams for clerks, dependents and children. The situation intensified with exceptionally harsh winters where temperatures repeatedly dropped below -40. In the extreme conditions, with no heating at all, drivers bravely operated these vehicles for 2 years, transporting vital supplies across the frozen Lake Ladoga to the blockaded city. They then brought back the starving and freezing residents away from the occupied territories. Later on, especially during the spring, vehicles often ended up submerged in water. Several attempts were made to minimize these losses. For the 1.5 tonners, they weren't loaded to the full capacity. Loaded sleds were attached behind them to spread the weight across the larger surface. Drivers left the cabin doors open, offering a chance to jump onto the ice if the vehicle started to sink. However, being frozen and critically starved, most of the time they simply lacked the energy to do so. Astonishingly, 1 in every 3 1.5 tonners didn't make it across the lake. In addition to the risk of sinking, GAZ drivers faced another danger, the potential for encountering artillery shelling or the enemy air raids. They were a perfect target for the aimed fire, especially during the night, slow-moving trucks with the lights on. So during the night they operated with their blackout precautions. Convoy drivers turned off their headlights and relied on special markers, signals holding lantern lights, or the shapes of the oncoming vehicles. Visibility in these conditions was severely limited, making it difficult to distinguish between a puddle of meltwater in front of the hood to a trench's depression, or a thin crack where a slight reduction in speed was enough for it to turn into a dangerous ice hummock. Often vehicles would accidentally plunge into the ice, leaving no chance for the driver and the passengers to escape. Under threat of execution, no one was permitted to stop and provide assistance if a neighbouring vehicle either submerged or got stuck. all in an effort to prevent the reoccurrence of such an incident. In total, 738,000 people were evacuated and nearly 600,000 tons of cargo were transported along the ice road, mostly by gas trucks. The significance of this legendary vehicle and heroic efforts of its drivers played a crucial role in pushing back the Nazis from occupied territories. While the narrative is undoubtedly sobering, it underscores the profound impact a single vehicle and its brave operators can have on a global peace. So, if you ever encounter the early Ford models, know that its twin brothers served as the heroes for its country. Stay tuned for the upcoming videos exploring intriguing modifications of the GAZ-AA, including the one that runs on wood.